Good morning, Bitcoiners. I don't know where your comments are. I don't know what happened. They all just disappeared. I know there are people around here. I just don't know why I'm not seeing any comments. So I can't say good morning to any of y'all because I can't see nothing. Let me see what's up. Let's see what's up. Give me a second here. It says we're live on Rumble. That's a good sign. That's a good sign. It says we have a bunch of viewers, far more than I'm seeing over on the YouTube thing. I mean, literally okay, here we go. So things are starting to come in, but I'm still not seeing any comments for some reason. I don't know why they're not coming in. I'm getting 0 of your good mornings. There's one. P-Man. Good morning, all. Okay, good morning, all. Things are starting to trickle in, but I don't know why. Don't know. I saw a bunch like normal when there's like a waiting room. Okay, I'm live now. Yeah, there's like a waiting room before I hit go live, and I can usually see your comments before I even go live. The comments come through. So I'm usually teed up. I saw them, and then they all vanished. So Bitcoin Graffiti, we got a special Wizard of Oz episode for you today. We love the Wizard of Oz episodes. Right. Bon matin. Good morning, Bitcoiners. Over on Rumble, we got Connector. Bonjour, y'all. And we've got Don Boley. Good morning. Still cheap sats until the world gets the value of Bitcoin. No kidding. Good morning, Bitcoiners. CB Van says, good morning. Good morning. Back to work tomorrow, Richard says. I know, sir. Great, Bitcoin Graffiti. We'll talk about it all in a minute. So I'll let some of these comments trickle in. We'll skip a little bit of the good mornings, and we'll acknowledge our beautiful sunrise here on the Atlantic coast of North America and the SunTech operational. Bitcoin is also running globally right now, so we're doing great. We're doing excellent. Let's have a coffee and talk about what's new. But first, I know you want the fake news. The fake news. Who wants the fake news? Yo, from Tabasco land, Jumper DCS says. We love the Tabasco. I got some folks sending me Tabasco pictures yesterday because people love Tabasco. It is indeed the greatest sauce. If you want a love letter to Tabasco, you can go check out yesterday's episode where we gave some love to Tabasco. All right, let's get into the fake news of the day. Ready? We're going to start with Bloomberg, okay? They got a new plan over at Bloomberg, right? Things aren't going that well with the global warming mitigation, and people are complaining about the carbon markets, and ESG ETFs are collapsing. Nobody gives a shit. Even BlackRock is quitting, but they have a new plan, everyone. It's excellent. It might work, okay? This is the best plan they've come up with so far. That's why I got to share it with you. Forget offsets. What if companies had a carbon swear jar? They're going to do swear jars, everyone. Applying a carbon fee to business units can speed up corporate emissions reductions and the global energy transition, a new report says. So everyone's got to go get their little swear jar, but it's going to be like, I didn't recycle, or I'm going to drive my car, and then you have to pay. But it's not a Tesla, and then you got to pay. It's going to be perfect. It's going to be great. All right, and we got this one. This is a very special one. I'm a big fan of the James Clavell Asian Saga novels. Now, I'll admit, if you're not a fan of them, don't know what they are, there is a concept out there called Orientalism. There's a bit of that going on. If you want to know the flip side of Orientalism, it's called Occidentalism. And the greatest example of Occidentalism I can think of is Osama bin Laden, actually. Osama bin Laden thought he knew all kinds of things about the West, but didn't really, right? So he had a very caricature version. If you read The Looming Tower, you'll find out that he didn't really understand the West that well. So that's an example of Occidentalism the other way. Thought he did, didn't. Orientalism exists in the opposite direction. So there is a bit of that in the Asian Saga, so I don't want to say it isn't there. It's not a racist thing or whatever. I'm just letting you know it is definitely written from a Western perspective, which is fine. We're a big fan of the James Clavell series. And if you didn't know, there's a whole series of TV shows that have started to come out on FX Network. The first being the original contact between an English pilot called the Anjin, who arrived at the very moment in Japan when the Tokugawa regime was beginning. So this was the civil war that led to the Edo period and the Tokugawa era. And now we have a very important question, right? So this is all set in the 1600s, right? This is all set in the 1600s in Japan, which is a closed off island, and they didn't allow anyone in, and they cut your head off if you came. But they have a really important question that they're asking here. Where are the black people in Shogun? There's a Japanese proverb that says a samurai to be brave, he must have a bit of black blood. If that's the case, FX's monster hit Shogun has a lot of scared swordsmen. So they're just scared. They're scared. The Japanese are scared. It's very, very nice one. Very, very, very excellent. So it's true. You won't see any black samurai in the story. Okay. And by the way, if I'm correct, they're going to keep making them because the Asian saga actually goes. It's incredible. It starts at this Tokugawa period. And then after that, it'll go to the formation of Hong Kong. All the stories become interconnected with various things. You already saw in the last episode of Shogun. The soon-to-be shogun makes an investment into Macau and the silk trade down in Hong Kong. This will lead inevitably to the creation of Hong Kong and the Opium Wars. The story then progresses back to Meiji Japan, so the 1860 version when the emperor is reinstalled and the shogunate falls. And then the story flips forward again to World War II, where they end up in Singapore at a prison camp. A Japanese prison camp in Singapore during World War II. Then it flips again back to Hong Kong and deals with the stock market there. That's my favorite one. It's called the Noble House. Excellent. And then from there, finally, it goes to the final part of the story, which is set in Iran, or whatever you want to call it, in 1979, called Whirlwind. And it's all about the fall of the whatever his name, the Shah, and then the beginning of the Ayatollah time. So excellent series. I'll recommend the show, but read the books. They're all great. Anyway, sorry to pause Moscow time with all of that. Let's get back to our favorite place, Haiti. Haiti. So here's, I don't know if this is real, but it's great. So I have to share it. One of the great things about Moscow time is we don't actually know if all of these stories are legit or actually fake. There's no way to tell the difference, right? But someone might have written this. I don't know. Who knows? Dear racists, cannibals are people too. Cannibalism is a practice historically observed in various cultures and ethnicities. However, racists only seem to have an issue with it when it's people of color that enjoy the controversial meal. I don't know if that's real. It can't be. It can't be. But in other news, in other cannibal news, Canada has its own cannibal. His name is Luca Magnotta, and now he's gone with the gender transfer. And with the gender transfer, right, he went through gender transfer. Luca Magnotta was his name, and he indeed was a cannibal, right? He ate some people in Montreal a couple of years ago. And now this is reported in CTV News, right, just in the spirit of the times, right? So he switched his genders, and now doesn't matter if he's a cannibal. Magnotta transferred to a medium security prison, prompts MPs to call corrections head warden to testify. So good news, Canada. Your resident cannibal is gonna, get a little freedom. It's perfect. It's what he needed, right? I'm sure it'll help him identify with his gender a little better. It's excellent. So, we talk often about Canada being the dumbest place in the world, and I really do think it is the stupidest country in the world. I'm from Canada, so I'm allowed to say that, right? Because I know how stupid it is over there, and I know just what a collection of morons actually live in that place. They're good at hockey and a few things, but otherwise, rock bottom stupid. I mean, really dumb people, right? And here, we just found out that Mexico has now officially overtaken Canada as the largest trading partner of the United States. So Canada doing great, right? Doing really great. But Canada, one of the things about Canada's stupidity is like shit, it kind of flows down, right? So shit always goes downwards. If you want to see one of the most beautiful, I tried to get this put up in the Met. I almost rented the Met one year for Consensus, CoinDesk's old show. And so I almost rented it in 2018 to do like NFT stuff. We were really far ahead on that stuff. And so I was going to rent the Met, and I was going to hang Willy Woo's shit flows downward graph. That was going to be one of my things that I put in there. So if you guys have never seen Willy Woo's shit flows downwards, data set. It's beautiful. You gotta see it. But indeed, shit flows downwards, right? So shit flows downwards. And now I just mentioned all these great things about Canada. Did you know that Canada also banned the wood ovens in Montreal because of global warming, and they can't make the bagels with the hot fire anymore? Now, some of them are scofflawing and still doing it, so it's not exactly what people say. But as I said, shit flows downwards. So here's what we got. New York City has quietly approved a controversial green plan to require pizzerias and matzo bakeries using decades-old wood and coal-fire stoves to cut their smoky pollutants by 75%. So this is one of those excellent stories where we get shit flowing downwards, right? It usually flows into California first, but sometimes New York is really there to get the shit sandwich. So thanks, New York. It's great. I can't wait for them to get rid of all this stuff. It's going to be awesome. What else is going in New York? Katie Hochul, the governor, has banned long guns. So indeed, we might have a little bit of military presence on the subway now in New York, and it might be harder to board a New York subway than a U.S. airplane, but that's fine, right? That's okay. They're going to get rid of the long guns. That's the problem. The soldiers on the subway get to keep their small firearms, but the long guns, that can't do. So that's done, right? That's done. Plumber's rule. 1, shit flows downhill. Rule 2, don't bite your fingernails. Ay, 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 ay. Indeed, shit flows downwards, everyone. We have to remember that, right? It's really important. Speaking of shit flowing downwards, it's not just New York that has shit, right? California has this new thing in Oakland where all the Taco Bell locations in Oakland announced the indefinite closure of all dining rooms due to robberies and a crime surge. So they're only going to do cashless drive-through now. So it's perfect for them. This one's also excellent, right? This comes from the Canadian News, excellent source of fake news, Canadian CTV News. An expanding NATO uses diversity as strength. Member troops know Russia is watching. They've got diversity is our strength headlines for NATO. In other news, this is an exclusive. According to CNN people, this is breaking news. I think we've known that here for a little while. Russia producing 3 times more artillery shells than US and Europe for Ukraine. Oh, but what about diversity? What about the diversity, Russia? You're going to lose. Diversity is their strength. You're going to lose. This is also great. So we've got some fact-checking stuff here, right? We got some fact-checking stuff. So here's a fact check that the Washington Post ran on Trump. It's really great. I'm going to read the whole thing to you. Oh, no, I'm missing one more from the Washington Post. We're on the food subject still. I got to get this one here. Rasmus Monk's new Spora lab in Copenhagen is trying to make chocolate out of coffee grounds. Yum. Tacos out of a canola oil byproduct and more. It's the search for sustainable foods, they said. So it's not just the canola oil here. It's the used canola oil. So they think they can make tacos out of the used canola oil. So let's wish them well. In search of sustainable food, a Top Chef homes in on waste. Rasmus Monk is trying to make tacos out of a canola oil byproduct. He prepares a smoky ball from stuffed gluten with smoke trapped inside. There you go. We'll see how it all goes, buddy. Now, back to the fact check. So here we go. This is pretty good stuff. Pretty good stuff. So this is Trump. On the last Friday in February, Trump, the day before the South Carolina primary, Donald Trump took to stage in Rock Hill, South Carolina, where he spoke for just over an hour and a half. A close examination of his remarks that day offers an anatomy of a typical Trump rally speech and a dark vision for the nation. This is from Washington Post. It's really good. I'm gonna explain it to you. Awesome stuff. Here we go. Trump often offers almost a complete alternate reality of what the world looked like under his administration and what it would look like under a second one as well. At times, Trump hews at a teleprompter, while at others he careens gleefully off script. Over time, his stump speech has evolved, though certain hallmarks remain. One constant is that it is certain to contain a slew of falsehoods and mistruths, ranging from hyperbole to outright lies. Like his false claim that the 2020 election was stolen. So false. In Rock Hill, Trump described an ominous vision of what would happen if he lost. He warned the largest stock market crash we've ever had. At another point, he cautioned, we'll end up in World War III. The Washington Post fact checker, this is the best part. The Washington Post fact checker found that in the 4 years of his presidency, Trump offered 30,573 untruths. Good count, good count. An average of roughly 21 erroneous claims a day. Wow, wow, wow. Now, in other news, we found out this from one news source saying that Biden, this is from the deputy press secretary, Biden absolutely did not apologize for calling Laken Riley's alleged killer an illegal during the State of the Union, says principal deputy press secretary Olivia Dalton. So remember, everyone, he did not apologize to the killer by saying they're not illegal and that illegals built the country. He did not do that, okay? Even though it was reported widely, he did not do it, according to them yesterday. Where's the fact check? We don't know. They did one fact check. This is from the New York Post. Snickers denies Biden's State of the Union accusation that it has reduced candy bar sizes and shrinkflation. So who says they don't fact check him? Come on. He said that Snickers does shrinkflation, but Snickers fact checked him. Okay, so there you go. Don't say there's no fact checking on both sides. Trump might have 30,573 falsehoods, but Biden, the Snickers one, right? He said Snickers. So there you go. Just perfect, right? Just perfect. Oh, I got to read this one from Sticks, Hex, and Hammer. Joe Biden is the perfect storm, a matchup of pure, unbridled dementia with a lingering and inescapable ego crisis. He wants to have power, can't, and will do anything to try and maintain his dominance. A total fruitcake. Remember what I said about how great Biden is for actually the symbol of the presidency right now? I said he's the Craig Wright of presidents. He's perfect. He is perfect. Perfect for the times we live in. God, we love Biden. What would we do in this period without Biden, right? We'd end up with Trump grokking Bitcoin, right? That would not be that good right now. Next administration, it's okay. Not right now. We like all this stuff. It's a lot of fun. All right. So speaking more of fact checks, right? This one's pretty good. So remember Cassidy Hutchinson, right? The one who said that Trump tried to take control of the limo and actually jumped forward and tried to move the steering wheel, right? She wasn't in the car, but she knew, right? It turns out that the driver of the Beast on January 6th testified to the J6 committee that President never physically assaulted Secret Service agents or lunged at the steering wheel when they refused to take him to the Capitol. Well, a little bit more fact checking here. Huh? And this one's great too. This is the Mar-a-Lago boxes hoax. The Mar-a-Lago boxes hoax that's back in the news. And why? Former Mar-a-Lago worker comes forward and describes moving materials in Trump's classified docs case, right? Now, if you go and read, he says, I never saw what was in them. So they just got a guy who moved the boxes and now it's a new story. We found the guy who used to work there and he moved boxes. He didn't know what was in them. That's okay. The boxes were there. The boxes hoax. We love the boxes hoax, right? And indeed, the boxes hoax is, I think anyway, one of the funniest stories. And it also reminds us of something that is really important. And I think that Bitcoiners are leading the way in this. And that is getting to the heart of all of this fake news and things like the boxes hoax and things like Cassidy Hutchinson and all of that stuff. Now, Nick Carter, if you go back to that article that I've mentioned many, many times, the Wall Street Journal article where they tried to create the information laundering loop, which would have been used as a predicate for anti-Bitcoin type laws from the Elizabeth Warren cabal. So Nick Carter here talking about the journalists who actually do this stuff and the experts who actually do this stuff. So here he is talking about John Griffin, right? John Griffin is one of the Tether truthers out there. So he says, John Griffin, the Griffin in Griffin and Sham's infamous debunked Tether truther paper, has reappeared and has published something just as dumb, if not worse. I assume that he is already parading this in front of the press and they will be reporting on it as if it's true. What he does is lie with an academic veneer in order to A, promote his own company, and B, paint crypto in a ludicrously bad light. He's a straight up bad person who's attempting to profiteer while giving crypto haters ammo to attack us with. He has pissed me off enough that now I will be giving him the treatment. So Nick goes on and says, I cannot express the words in words the contempt I have for this guy. Just a grade A asshole that has made a living tricking journalists into believing completely ludicrous anti-crypto claims just because he is a professor. By the way, his stuff gets picked up by the policy crowd and they use it to make bad legislation that hurts the industry. That's why we went so hard on the Wall Street Journal. They were useful idiots for Warren, who almost passed a bill based on it. 100% chance Griffin's fakery gets cited by her in the coming weeks. We need to push hard to pre-bunk this stuff before it actually gets used as justification for bad policy. Now, he also brings up all these articles where we're talking about the obscene demands of AI, right? Now the AI crowd is starting to get the same treatment Bitcoin mining got, right? We have an article here, the obscene energy demands of AI, how the world will reach net zero if it keeps inventing new ways to consume energy. Nick also talks about this. Speaking of academic frauds, the fact that Bitcoin energy hater-in-chief DeVries has pivoted to hating on AI energy use and continues to trick journalists with his made-up metrics is absolutely hilarious. And it is, right? It is pretty funny. There's a few articles out there today about this, right? ChatGPT uses 17,000 times the amount of electricity than the average US household does daily. It just makes no sense. Growing Daniel writes, comparing the entire energy consumption of OpenAI to a single US household is the most measuring things in bananas ass shit I've ever seen. Which is true, right? What the fuck are they even talking about? It doesn't make any sense to compare those two things. But the good news is, again, the media literacy of Bitcoiners, the media literacy of people like Nick Carter, what we do here every single day with our Moscow time, with our ability to break down what people are doing, how the lies are working, how the information laundering is going, right? Bitcoiners learned a long time ago how information laundering worked. There was a time when a lot of Bitcoiners at the beginning of Bitcoin thought, maybe the news is just half-half. We realized a long time ago as Bitcoiners that it's all fake. All of it is fake. There's nothing real about it because the data isn't real. Anyone who's trying to use data for an argument in this environment is trying to scam you, right? There is no data. There's no data at all worth anything. Anyone who's giving you a data-based argument, and I'm telling you, even on things that confirm your own biases, I believe the vaccines are dangerous. I do. I don't use them, right? I wouldn't have used those vaccines. I have a bit of an understanding about how to manage my own risk, and I don't want to increase the risk with an unknown factor. That's all the data I know. I don't know anything else about it. Anything. But if anyone comes to me with data about the vaccines being dangerous, it's the same thing. It's just data. I won't believe them. Doesn't change my own personal risk assessment. I didn't do my own research, by the way. I'm not out there doing my own research, right? That's not a good look. And I can't do my own research. I don't have a lab. People who say they're doing their own research, that's their own business. Let them think they're doing that, right? Maybe it brings you some comfort or solace or whatever. No. In my case, I just went with basic risk management. Something I didn't understand, didn't know about, to me, could only increase my risks. My risks of being a normal person who can combat the virus with my own immune system was enough risk for me, and I didn't want to add any more risk to it. That's all I know. That's it. I literally know nothing else besides that. But it's enough. It's enough, right? So data is just the dumbest thing in the world, right? It doesn't prove anything. It's just used to confirm biases and to prompt engineer humans and things like that, right? So it's important, and that's why it's important for Bitcoiners to understand how the information laundering system works. Now, that being said, right, we had a pretty interesting day on Squawk Box yesterday, not talking about data, but talking about Bitcoin and the moves that are happening and the changes that are happening. And what I found interesting, so I used to go on Squawk Box all the time, right? I used to go on with Joe Kernan and Andrew Ross Sorkin and all that kind of stuff. In the 2 Bitcoin cycles ago, I was there a lot. And yesterday they covered some pretty amazing Bitcoin stuff. They had both Michael Saylor and Donald Trump talking about Bitcoin on the show yesterday. So what did we hear, right? First, we heard a really interesting thing. And to me, this is where we get into where we're bringing it back to this data question and what we can do to build going forward and how we can make data great again and useful again, right? So it starts off with Michael Saylor saying that going into the medium of exchange argument. He says medium of exchange is a distraction, and governments are always going to issue currency and make it legal tender, right? So he's saying here the store of value piece is more important than the medium of exchange part, right? And you also had, by the way, Drake sharing this highlight video yesterday with 147 million followers. So pretty interesting. That went out on Instagram. So that looks like it got a lot of traction yesterday. And then you had Trump there saying the following, right? So Trump is talking about Bitcoin with Joe Kernan, and he says, sometimes we let people pay through Bitcoin. It's an additional form of currency. But Trump also does this thing where he says, I prefer one currency, but this thing has taken a life out of its own, and it's doing this thing, and people love it, and da-da-da-da. But remember, he said, I prefer one, right? Now, here's what's interesting. Both Saylor and Trump are talking about something very similar, right? They're talking about bimetallism. Now, bimetallism is something that I mention very often here on the Breakup, and it's something that I continue to think is really important for us going forward. A place like El Salvador is already living on a bimetallist standard. What we've got over in Argentina as well is something similar to a bimetallist standard. And bimetallism, according to Malay, who is actually out there teaching bimetallism, is simple. It's you have one money for purchases for consumer items and sustenance and things like that, coffee, right? And you've got another that you save. So in previous times, this would have been silver and gold, right? So silver and gold. Before there was a gold standard, there was something in America called bimetallism. And bimetallism was exactly that. Now, it created a lot of political tensions in America at the turn of the century because the farmers were using silver and the bankers were using gold, right? So there was some political tension around how this would all shake out. And in the end, we had a huge financial collapse at the time and basically set the stage for moving to the gold standard for the original iteration of the Federal Reserve System in 1912. But previous to that, in the late 1800s into the early 1900s, this was really the political subject of the time that had everyone gripped. This was the main point of Teddy Roosevelt's presidency. This was a huge deal at the time. And it helped define all the political parties, the political movements, everything. Remember, Teddy Roosevelt comes back to run in the 1912 election in America. He was president from 1900 to 1908 as a result of an assassination in 1900. So he only had a 3-year first term and then a second term of 4 years, which he counted as 2 full terms. So he gave up the presidency for the third one by putting William Howard Taft as president. And he came back to run against him by creating a similar situation to RFK, the most successful third-party candidacy America's ever seen, called the Bull Moose Party, whose sole purpose was to destroy any efforts to create the Federal Reserve. When he gave the presidency to Taft, he made him promise he wouldn't do a Federal Reserve System, but that was taken away. At the time, Roosevelt called it the bank trust or the bank cartel. He, of course, was known for trust busting. Now, trusts at the time were really monopolies. And so he broke Standard Oil at the time. He was out there trying to get all these trusts. You owned everything. Now, for American perspective, this looks a little bit more like what we have currently in Korea and Japan. In Korea and Japan, these trusts, if you will, the American equivalent of these trusts persisted. And in Korea, they're called chaebol. And in Japan, I forget what they're called, but these huge family conglomerates like Toyota or Toshiba and all these other, right? They control all kinds of other things. There's like weird candy bars you can buy from these people and stuff like that. They literally do everything across the economy. So that's what America had. It was broken by Teddy Roosevelt. He realized the biggest and worst of these things was going to be the bank trust. So he opposed it vehemently. Now, what happened was, because this was the biggest subject at the time, because everyone was gripped with this, the book Wizard of Oz was actually written by Frank L. Baum in this environment. And Frank L. Baum was a big proponent of bimetallism. He was a big part of this. He was a part of the political movement that was behind it. Now, in the 1930s movie, what you don't realize is they're not ruby red slippers. They're actually silver slippers on a gold zaibatsu. Yes, Daniel says the zaibatsu. Exactly. Yes, zaibatsu. They're chaebol in Korea, zaibatsu in Japan. So the book was actually written in this political environment. The tornado was political populism at the time, right? Because it upended everyone. It killed one of the bankers. One of the wicked witches are the bankers, right? The Wicked Witch of the East. That's why she's the Wicked Witch of the East. The Wizard of Oz is a politician, right? It's all quid pro quo. You do something for me, you destroy the banker's power and deliver it to me, and I'll give you something which you don't actually need, right? That's what they sort of realize at the end of the story. But again, it wasn't ruby red slippers. It was silver slippers on gold to identify what bimetallism actually is. Now, if you didn't know this, Wizard of Oz has been remade. They're coming out with a new Wizard of Oz movie this year by Christmas time, by the election time. By next election, a remake of The Wizard of Oz is coming to cinema. Now, I can't say it's going to be good. They're probably going to do... the wizard is also a credentialist. Yes, he gives out the degree. He gives out the brain you don't need. He gives out things you don't actually need, right? Fake diplomas and shit like that. But the quid pro quo is a big part of it. That is what politicians were made for in this world, right? They're not really doing anything for you, but if you do something for them, they might give you some little thing, right? So they're remaking the movie. You should go check out the trailer. It looks out of this world. Now, of course, they're going to give it, they're going to wonder why there aren't black people in it or something like that, or something dumb, right? They're going to definitely screw it up. So I'm not sitting here telling you the movie is going to be good. Okay, I have my doubts. It looks beautiful. It really does look beautiful. So I hope they do a good job. And they are still going to go with the ruby red slippers, and they're not doing the silver slippers. But nevertheless, the political climate that we're entering, right? Even Trump talking about it in the way he's talking about it, that we're getting into bimetallism. Dorothy, the people, Lion, Scarecrow, the Tin Man are the characters. Yeah, so I'll explain the stories for a second, or the people here. Yeah, Dorothy is just a normal U.S. citizen who doesn't really know what's going on and is just trying to make their way. The Munchkins at the very beginning of the story are people who remember a better time, right? They sort of remember what was going on, but can't quite. They will probably totally miss the money allegory. Yeah, they may. We'll see. But what I'm saying here is that when you get people like, that's what Saylor is actually saying, right? Saylor is actually saying, forget about medium of exchange for now. For now, forget it. Right? It's not about medium of exchange necessarily. The store of value piece is more important. He's actually proposing bimetallism. When he says countries will always mint money, indeed. Now, the type of bimetallism we're getting into, and I'll get to it when we talk about something Balaji wrote, is exactly what I've been predicting for a while. You have political money, which is going to become food stamps. It is going to become money for consuming people and keeping them alive and things like that, right? What are we going to do with all these journalists? There's going to be something like a political UBI or whatever, which will be used to pay for all of these broken brain, mentally ill people that have been created by fiat hypnotism and brainwashing. So we're going to have to find a way to deal with them. Now, there are alternatives, but I don't have the stomach for the alternatives, right? So anyway, I'll go back to the characters in The Wizard of Oz for a second. The Scarecrow, of course, is a straw man, right? Made of straw. So already they're worried. The political climate realizes that if they move away from the gold and silver and they come out with a gold and government-backed money, they'll have to institute Social Security and taxation and an IRS and income tax and everything. So they were aware this had to come together because they needed to collateralize it. So the straw man, right? Just like the Tin Man, right? Do you know what a Tin Man is? You know what your ITIN number is in America? ITIN is your Social Security number. It's another way of saying Social Security number. ITINs are given to businesses and everything like that, right? So the Tin Man is your tax identification number, right? So the tax identification number and the straw man can be thought of in terms of these fake characters that you create in order to tax people, right? That's the whole birth certificate collateralization scam at the heart of the fiat scam. So, and by the way, I had a friend asking me for advice the other day who was a bit nomadic, but worried about where their flag is and all that stuff. And I said, well, one of the things you got to do, one of the best ways you can scam back, and I'm not sure a lot of people around the world know this, but it's a major thing to do in, it is your personal mark of the beast. I know whenever these people tell me the mark of the beast is coming, fuck you. It's been here for 100 years. Shut the fuck up about mark of the beast coming. I can't stand these eschatological Christians sometimes with it's coming. It's fucking been here for years, you morons. Like, get out of here with this shit. You didn't get called up to heaven, guys. Sorry, you didn't make the cut. Okay, like you're here with us. We're living in the shit that has already been predicted. So don't tell me it's coming tomorrow. It's the people that, these dumb, absolutely mentally ill Christians that believe that Bitcoin is the mark of the beast. These fucked up people, right? And I tell them all the time, you idiot. Like, it's been here for 100 years, like literally 100 years, that you can't do business if you don't sign up for this thing. So anyway, the lion, by the way, if you want to know, were the political progressives of the time, cowards, right? They blah, 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 and they can't do shit. So those were the characters at play. So there you go. We love the Jesus freaks, Muslim Bitcoiner. We are absolutely Jesus freaks, but it's not the Jesus part either. Remember, this is what I always try to remind them of, right? What did Jesus actually get killed for? Do you remember? Do you know? The money. He went to the temple and they were trading money in the temple, and he flipped the money trading table that was supposed to be in the heart of their religious practice. So he was there to protest the money takeover of the temple, right? So he's a Bitcoin hero for that, of course, right? He's the original Bitcoiner. He's the original separate money and state guy. Like, no one did that before, right? A big part of what he did. So, go back to just this idea of what's happening in Wizard of Oz and the zeitgeist, let's say, right? So go to where we're actually think of where we're headed to in the autumn, right? We got the election, probably going to have a collapsed economy with all the debt, right? We'll talk about the debt in a second. The lion becomes, they were eventually all transformed into their real things. The lion becomes courageous. The scarecrow does have a brain, and the tin man does have a heart. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Jesus knew the money changers were evil. He sure did. Yeah. No, I mean, the story of Jesus should be recognizable to most Bitcoiners, right? Like that's what got him. That's what did it. That's where the legal proceedings to murder him came from, right? It came from the money thing. After the wizard is exposed. Yes, correct. Yeah. So here's what I'm saying, though. We're going to get, by autumn, we're going to have bimetallism being promoted by people like Bukele, by people like Milei, by people like Saylor, who are already talking about bimetallism. We're already talking about it, right? And now Trump is sort of accidentally falling into talking about it, right? He's like, people like it, something's happening, right? I prefer one, but something's happening. I let people pay it, something's happening, right? It's a typical Trump working things out in his mind. And I believe, again, that if you have someone like Donald Trump promoting Bitcoin, you're dealing with the greatest salesman and the greatest promoter of anything that ever existed. Like, just remember him yesterday talking about the shoes also, right? He's like, you wouldn't believe it with the shoes, right? So here's what we're gonna get, right? So we'll have this context. Now, again, I don't expect the Wizard of Oz to get it right. I have no confidence in Hollywood, but it won't really matter. It's going to be in the air. People are going to be talking about it, and it's going to have a big effect. But here's why it's important. Just the modeling of it, just the conversation around this stuff becomes important when we think of what, happening with all this inflation. What's happening yesterday, we saw all of this information come out about how big the federal debt is getting, how big the deficit spending is, something like $8 trillion budget that was put in yesterday, right? 7.3 trillion in total revenue. In total spending, a $4 trillion a year deficit coming this year, right? So an amazing thing. And when you think of government spending in that way, here's what Balaji says about it, right? He says, why do you hate America so much? That's what they'll say when you try to cut spending. Because DC is spending 6.1 trillion on 4.4 trillion of revenue. It's paying for Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and burning money on defense and interest. These are powerful constituencies. You cannot get elected by opposing one of them, let alone all at once. So that's why the red ink blots out of the sky, and why the state will spend till it dies. Yet what comes next? True, a human can die without an heir, but a system can only die when an heir appears. It turns out that heir is near. We already see the network succeeding the state. USPS is replaced by email. Taxi medallions are issued by Uber. NASA is deprecated by SpaceX. This is transfer of sovereignty from a failing state to an ascending network. But most people haven't thought it all the way through. We ain't seen nothing yet. From founder to founding father. Now, again, I have made several shows about Vivek being a founding father of a new type of situation. Scott Adams got into the story a little bit after me. I think I was even first on, I think I got ahead of him a little bit by a couple of days on that observation. Elon Musk, for example, Donald Trump. I have a thumbnail for one of the shows where Donald Trump is dressed as a founding father holding like a Bitcoin staff, right? So this is something that we've been talking about for a while, about founding new systems and starting over almost from scratch. So he says, we are fortunate that the seeds of the next order are visible even as the current one collapses. For a generation now, it's become common for capable people around the world to immigrate to the internet and build things completely from scratch. Right now, we think of these people as building tech companies because they are typically incorporating businesses using some underlying state's legal platform. But what they're really doing is building a network of organizations. You do not need to file paper incorporation documents with a state when setting up a WhatsApp group with 10 friends or a Discord with 1,000 people. You do not need to get a banking license to hold Bitcoin. Technologically, you can even set up a DAO with 100 million worth of cryptocurrency with a few clicks online. The paper is but a legacy process. As Elon has shown, even Delaware incorporation isn't worth the paper it's printed on. What matters is the network. And the new network organizations are becoming stronger with their state equivalents. Digital media has wiped the floor with legacy media. This is what I was saying about our ability with that Nick Carter breakdown of the information laundering system back in the day with the Wall Street Journal article from last autumn, and doing it again now with whatever this new guy is going to be publishing, the new FUD, the latest FUD, right? Digital money is in the process of doing so with the banking system. The next step is digital minds with AI to automate all the lawyers. And by the way, Grok was open source today, I think, right? So we're going to be able to see under the hood of Grok. Now, Grok isn't the best one out there, right? But Claude or whatever, that one's doing pretty well. The next step is digital minds with AI to automate all the lawyers. Finally comes the digital military, the brave new world of robot soldiers and 3D printed drones. Now, I'm telling you, I want Palmer Luckey at Bitcoin 2024 in Nashville so bad. He's one of the most important Bitcoiners of this cycle, I think. Palmer Luckey was the guy who founded the Oculus thing and made a shit ton of money off of Zuckerberg when he sold it, but then went immediately into all of this drone shit. He's an old Bitcoiner. He's been into Bitcoin for a long, long time, and I think is one of the most important characters coming around in this cycle. So I've been trying to get him for a while. I think we'll get him. But he's exactly the kind of person we need in the Bitcoin world in order to, consolidate our own worldview. So he goes on, network is greater than state. So the heir is near. The network will take over from the state. It's not just about replacing postal service and taxi medallions. It's about replacing bankrupt states with network states, about replacing fiat standards with Bitcoin standards, about ending the 20th century and beginning the 21st, about leveling up from CEO of a tech company to president of an opt-in community. Now, maybe we don't need all that. Maybe we don't need to be able to boot up new states from scratch. Maybe AI will save us, or the debt doesn't matter, or God will take care of fools, drunkards in the US, or some similar cope will provide hope. Maybe this old system can even be fixed with single issue voters. But or maybe we just are going to need a new founding father, right? So I don't know what the answer is to that, right? But the idea here that we've got this capacity to actually replace almost everything that's there. Again, it's not about destroying what's there. It's about having a credible alternative. And that's what Saylor was getting at when he said that the medium of exchange piece is a bit of it's too early to even be thinking about that. We're entering a stage of bimetallism. And again, having people who can explain this to the masses, having people like Vivek who can explain bimetallism, Milei in Spanish, Bukele in Spanish, Trump, who's basically there explaining what bimetallism is, right? When he says he has a preference for one, he did not say he doesn't expect it to change, right? It looks like it's changing, and he's admitting the reality of it. So when you start thinking of all this stuff, right? And then you wonder where he's, what could push him further, right? What could push all these characters further? You don't have to go much further than Adam Schiff yesterday saying that Trump will not even get briefings from the deep state if he becomes reelected, that they're going to redact information from the president. He said it out loud yesterday, that the intelligence community has already agreed to not give Trump briefings that are accurate if he's reelected. And now, they didn't give him briefings that were accurate last time around either. So the situation now is that Trump, of course, is going to be even more angled against the deep state. You're going to get more of this stuff. You've got this story again with the Boeing thing. Has anyone seen this Boeing thing, right? That the Boeing whistleblower, and according to, you've got Kennedy saying that he knows this guy. Apparently, Kennedy's sister, Bobby Kennedy Jr.'s sister, wrote a book on this Boeing whistleblower. Apparently, he says John Barnett worked for Boeing for 32 years. The company worked to destroy his life after he exposed safety concerns. I'm proud that my sister Rory worked to tell his story in her award-winning documentary Downfall, The Case Against Boeing. Boeing killed 346 people out of greed. Let's hope there's a genuine investigation of Barnett's suicide, he says. Now, I don't know what happened to Barnett. I have no idea, right? Maybe he killed himself. Maybe, maybe, but I doubt it. It doesn't look like it. And the idea here that, the deep state exposing itself and almost bragging to this extent and doing things in the open the way it is right now, because it's been sort of triangulated through all of the fog of war that's been surrounding these folks for 50, 60 years now, since they killed Kennedy's dad and uncle. Since that happened, presidents haven't been getting the kind of briefings. What Adam Schiff said, that he's going to keep stuff from the president if he's elected, has actually been going on for that length of time. It happened to Kennedy. Kennedy knew when he was president, he was not getting accurate information from his own subordinates. And so we haven't had civilian control of the American system in half a century now. It's been someone else behind the curtain. And that's why this Wizard of Oz story about bimetallism is actually going to help people understand, because it's easy to understand. It's easy to understand that you need to separate money and state, and that while there will be political money, it will be really just be there to keep people alive and will be food stamps. So it's what you're going to see in El Salvador, in Argentina first, and they're going to model it for Americans. Now, is Trump going to want, I understand he has a preference for one, right? And what I've said for a long time is that American patriotism about the US dollar was probably one of the big things, right? Really important change. And having people embrace this idea that you don't need to infuse your patriotism of America with the dollar, that American patriotism goes way deeper. And there are many more reasons to be proud to be American than the stupid dollar, right? The dollar isn't even old. It's 100 and something years old. American history goes way further than that and is much more interesting and impactful. And when they tell the story of America one day when it falls 1,000, 2,000 years into the future, we'll have a much better idea of it. And I say all of this because we're already seeing this alternative situation, this alternative state, exactly what Balaji is getting at here. The nation state of the United States, the big federal structure that grew out of DC, the very thing they talk about in Wizard of Oz, right? In Wizard of Oz, it's Washington, DC that is the enemy. It's the political city that's the enemy. And when we see things like what's going on in Missouri now, right? Now, this is against Wells Fargo. You have states again, right? 16 AGs, your typical 16 AGs, the same AGs that sent back up to Texas when they announced their border sovereignty against the federal government a few weeks ago. So now Missouri, this is the same one suing Joe Biden for weaponizing big tech for censoring Americans. That's the Missouri versus Joe Biden case, which I think is going to be a big one again in 2024. Now they're demanding answers from Wells Fargo for the debanking of Americans. So this is the political piece going into the banking sector in a really explicit way, right? Going after Wells Fargo the way they are. What was Wells Fargo doing? Of course, they were punishing political beliefs and debanking customers. They were doing the Canadian truckers thing, right? So now you get these states that are waking up to their sovereignty. Every day there's a new reason to do it. And every day there are other states that are waking up to the infringement of their sovereignty that the federal government has imposed by doing things like allowing banks to use whatever DEI, no black people in Shogun, you don't get funding type mechanisms. So as that all continues to unfold, we're getting a sense of the effective orchestration or the effective calibration of state power in America. And it's resting on smaller states, smaller sovereignties. Again, I don't think Canada survives this. Canada is absolutely too rock bottom stupid, but they'll be better off on their own. We're entering an era where new states will take shape. Quebec, being the most self-aware and self-conscious part of North America, will probably be the first, right? Quebec is going to actually become, or at least Canada will die and Quebec will be, explicitly its own thing. So, which I look forward to, right? I look forward to Quebec waking up to its sovereignty, specifically around banking. De-risking from the U.S. state in the case of banking is going to be one of the best things for Quebec going forward. So, if you look at where things are headed as far as education and American ability to navigate these complex things, bimetallism is not an easy thing to get interested in. It's not an easy thing to understand at first. But imagine we're going to have a new movie at the same time as we will likely have a banking collapse and a stock market, whatever the hell's going on with the election time and the rest of the world de-risking from the US system. You're going to have the greatest communicators alive today talking about bimetallism on a daily basis by next autumn. On a daily basis, you're going to hear Milei in Spanish, Bukele in Spanish, Trump in English, Vivek in English. I think you're going to find RFK will grok bimetallism very, very easily. And we'll have grok. We can all grok, right? We're all going to have our own AI that will allow us to not get spun by the Taylor Lorenzes and the deep state people as much. So that's the good news. Michelle writes, thanks, Nolan. Been fence sitting with Bitcoin. I need to take action like BuMetal Idea. Yeah, look, it's to me one of the easiest ways to understand where we're headed. We're headed to a place where there will still be a US dollar. We're not going to win the whole thing overnight. I don't think. What we are going to get is a type of subsistence political money, food stamps. The US dollar is headed to be food stamps and only food stamps. It might be good for a few other government services, education. I think the voucher system will continue in America. So you'll get sort of a redeemable coupon for education. It might be a US dollar coupon. I don't know. These are all mechanics, right? There's probably a good way to do this. But there you go. We're headed to, I think, an incredible education track, right? And it should be great. BTC Gold. Yeah, BTC is gold. CBDCs are silver. I don't know if it'll be a CBDC. I mean, I think it might be. I think they are going to force the low IQ and the needful of direction into this thing. I think they'll want it, but there you go. Would the silver equivalent on a Bitcoin standard be a layer 2? It already is. I mean, Tether is a perfect US dollar substitute. I've always been a stablecoin fan, always, right? Go back to that Tether Truther article, the one that Nick Carter was talking about. I went on Squawk Box in 2017 and smashed that paper to bits, saying this is complete mind reading. This is funded by Ripple. And I explained already then, I've always been anti-Tether Truther. I thought that there was an opportunity for more stablecoins. That would be the only criticism I've ever given Tether, that there might be a bit of smoke and that might create an appetite for alternatives and other stablecoins, which I think played out, right? In 2018, there were no other stablecoins. And the new ones that came, I think, were addressing a market need to indeed have some diversity. You don't want every stablecoin to be Tether. But the idea here being that you can, we needed more, but that Tether, if you want to know what I said on the thing when I went on Squawk Box years ago and defended the original Tether attack, was they mind read everyone, right? If you read the article, the whole predicate, the entire concept was that people were hedging and arbitraging to get more dollars. And if it wasn't that, and so they were arbitraging to get more dollars, and if you didn't mind read them to assume they wanted more dollars, then it might look scammy, right? That the whole point was Tether sort of washing money. And I said, but what you're missing here, and the logic you're jumping to is that they want dollars and they're not using it because this Tether thing was done before there was a way to short Bitcoin. The markets hadn't really started yet for shorting Bitcoin and all the derivatives. So what most people did, including myself, including many people, is you move to a stablecoin position because there was no taxation back then. So you'd go stablecoin. If you thought Bitcoin was going down on exchange, you would move to a stablecoin and you pop back in to get more Bitcoin, right? Literally everyone was doing that back then. It was a total hobby. Like everyone was doing it. And you'd switch from one, go back to the other, go back because that was it. That was the only way to bet on the price. You'd move to a stable coin and move back. And so what I said to them to debunk their whole thing was, well, what if they just want more Bitcoin? The whole study is bullshit if you imagine and mind read all of the users and assume they're out to get more stablecoin. They're not. I said, no one in this game is trying to accumulate stable coins. They're going there to short Bitcoin to buy more Bitcoin. They want more Bitcoin. Now, if you assume in their methodology that the goal of most of these people is more Bitcoin, then the entire premise of what they're arguing is flipped and becomes opposite. It makes no sense that they would be doing this, right? So already back then, they were mind reading. They knew that the game was to get more dollars. And I said, you've never seen a stupider study in the world. Mind reading Bitcoiners that really the game is to get more stable coin is retarded. It's absolutely retarded, right? So, and it made no sense. It never made sense. So that was something that I was proud of doing because it was one of those things where the study just came out and I got called on TV at like 5 a.m. that day to go on the Squawk Box thing. And I was like, well, they're kind of scamming you with this, right? It's a big scam, right? And like you don't have to worry about mind reading people, right? You can't mind read an entire group of people and assume that they aren't playing the game of more Bitcoin. I said, the only game Bitcoiners are playing, they're playing one game. I want more Bitcoin. And they'll do anything to get more Bitcoin, including moving to a stable coin to short Bitcoin because they think it's going to go down in price so they can buy more Bitcoin and accumulate more. This was already known to everyone in the game in 2017, 2018. Everyone was playing that way. It was very normal. There were no tax implications, so you could party all day doing this stuff. No one was paying attention. It was totally fine, right? And if you understood it that way, then you knew the study was bullshit from the beginning. The benchmark was wrong. They were measuring a fictional non-person. They were measuring Gareth Soloway, that fucking stupid guy everyone's making fun of these days because he's retarded, right? He's mentally ill. These people are mentally ill. All right. Qatar going to be next nation state. You know why I believe that's true? I'm going to Qatar. So whenever I go to, like I went to El Salvador right when Bukele was elected. In 2019, I was in El Salvador months after he was elected. So there you go. Fiat will be there for not getting the NPCs angry. That's exactly it. Yeah. It will live for that. Do you think silver and gold will move higher with Bitcoin? Nah, I'm not. I mean, look, I understand why people like them. They're sort of a hedge, but they're pretty useless to me. Now, I have a bit of silver. I have a bit of gold. I'm not that anti them, but they're things I had from pre-Bitcoin. I'm not out there like accumulating. I don't have like an obsession to buy this stuff at all. So there you go. Saylor said he bought during the weekend. Friday, he got the money and secured 12K corn at 69 before the market opened. Yeah, it's amazing what he did this weekend. It's amazing. Yeah, the dollar is 90% of the weight of the CBDC already. Yeah, precious metals are worthless against Bitcoin. Yeah, that's what I believe. Bitcoin graffiti. I really do. Yeah. Now I love, like, I've got so many old silver coins. I used to get them for presents and stuff like that. Canadian mint ones. I have a ton of beautiful coins. I love them. They're silver. I've got at an arcade once. I got a whole row of silver pre-1967 quarters from a thing. I could feel it right away what they were, so I never used them. I ended up buying all of them that day. I said to my dad, "Dad, the arcade's giving away. They don't know what they have. It's all silver quarters. It was like $10 for a roll, right? So I got all kinds of, tons. My dad gave me probably like $100 to go to the thing there. I bought 10. I have a ton of these things. And, I got all kinds of other ones too. I was a coin collector for a little while. So there you go. Got some silver and wood gold coin. Yeah. And by the way, at the Bitcoin Amsterdam, we went to a party, my kids and I, very beautiful party. And there was a gold bug there who was so enamored with my kids, he gave them each a chunk of gold. He's just like, here. So they got a nice little haul that day. Things like that happen at Bitcoin shows, by the way. I put my promo code for Bitcoin Nashville in the description today. So you can do Space Drop. That'll get you a discount on your Bitcoin Nashville tickets. You can do it for Hong Kong as well if you want to come join us May 9th and 10th in Hong Kong. You can use the promo code Space Drop. It is not an airdrop. It's a Space Drop. It's not the same thing. But those promo codes will give you a discount on tickets. I was in Middle Coop's fund for a while, but bailed when I fully got Bitcoin. Yeah, Middle Coop doesn't really get it either. I've spoken to him in real life. I get that he likes Bitcoin and all that, but he's got some boomer brain stuff going on. Nice fella, but he's still quite a bit of credentialism. See you on the other side. Indeed. Can you buy Bitcoin in an IRA? You sure can, Michelle. You sure can. Unchained Capital will do that for you, I believe. And I think with the ETFs, it's become easier. So there you go. I have to dump some of my metals. The physical weight of them makes me feel retarded. The Gulf looking really orange. Oman made legal. Kaiser says Qatar's next nation. Saudi interested. Yeah. No, I believe my only reason for believing Qatar will go to Bitcoin is because, as I said, I'm scheduled to head there. I'm going to go check out the Falcon Hospital. I'm going to go check out the Camel Pen. I'm going to go to their souk in town. I'm going to go check out some of the other stuff. I'm looking forward to it. Yeah. Qatar going to be next big nation state. Gulf going to take over bigly. Yeah, it looks like it. I'm a fan of that part of the world. Silver was just there because gold wasn't properly divisible. Indeed. Yeah. So would the silver equivalent on a Bitcoin standard be there too? Yeah, as I said, it's already there. Stable coins are just fine. Right? They work great. Bitcoin threatening fiat is too uprooting. It will happen, but they steer away from the idea to make Bitcoin more acceptable. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with going through this middle period of bimetallism, right? Well, we don't have to. The chaos of instantly taking over might be too much for most of us to accept, right? Because what it involves, I'll tell you what it involves. It involves not caring when all these people die. And I don't think Bitcoiners are down for that, right? I'm not a survival of the fittest kind of person at all. I'm we should be able to make, as human beings on a Bitcoin standard, all the mentally retarded and incapable people should survive. We're not like, I wouldn't recognize humanity if we didn't make our weakest. We're not animals. The weakest of us should be fine, right? This is not monkey world here. We're human beings. The weakest of us we should be able to take care of everyone. So, including the haters and the broken brain NPCs and the evil journalists and all of them, right? Even Joe Biden, even Hunter Biden. We love Hunter Biden, right? They all got to make it. Now, some people have to be dropped from space. That's another story, right? That's not the same thing. Space drops are for the worst of them. Yeah. Until Bitcoin shall be crowned. Yeah. Until Bitcoin shall be crowned as the one global money. Yeah. Transition phase. Yeah. Most NPCs will stay that way, right? Yeah. Future looking bleak but bright. No, I think, look, the NPCs will go to whatever is safest, right? You got to remember, fear will trump brainwashing. It will. Now, you can use fear and brainwashing, but you can't hide the actual risks. and the risks are going to become apparent to tying your wagon to all of these people. The Spanish real was the world currency for centuries. It's a silver coin. Spanish silver dollar, yeah. But it had the purity tests, right? So that's why they would cut into it. And there was still gold around. So it was the best for the medium of exchange. So again, it's the bimetalist argument. Gold hadn't stopped being a savings instrument. It's just that silver had wide distribution, right? In Quebec, all of our money words, which are not used in France and in France French, the money words in Quebec are all based on the Spanish dollar. We say pièce, a piece, right? A pièce. We say weirdly, don't ask me why, but we don't say 25 cents for 25 cents. We have quarters in Quebec, but we call it a 30 sous, a 30-cent piece, even though it's 25 cents. The reason being it was the equivalent of the, that's what the Spanish silver dollar was cut into in Quebec. So Quebec even had an amazing history, financial history. It's something that, I'm very thankful I got to learn Quebec history growing up. It's still, money is still argent. Yeah, it's still argent. That's still the case. Silver in France. So silver in French Argentina, right? Argent is silver. Gold is just or. But indeed, but in France they've changed their money so many times that they have words for francs and centimes and euros and cents and all that. So they're out of their minds when it comes to that stuff. Quebec just has these weird linguistic roots, and they can be directly tied to the use of Spanish money in Quebec. We used playing cards for money in Quebec for a little while, where they were colored because we had no paper. So playing cards were actual money. Dutch is geld, origin of gold. Yeah. They say silver for money. Yeah, they do. Yeah, argent. But the Quebec words like pièce, and they also say a cent noir, a black cent. Never existed in Quebec, but I guess it's from the Spanish dollar as well. I don't know the exact details about it. It's all connected, but pièce for dollar, like a buck. In Quebec, you'd say for a buck, like a slang word for a dollar is a pièce, a piece of 8, right? And that's why also they say 30 cents, 30 sous, 30 cents. All right, team, let me see what people are saying over on Rumble, and then I got to get out of here. Let's see what the live chat is saying on Rumble today. Stupid thing isn't loading. 1 second. 1 second. Here we go. Let's see what the chatters are saying. Oh, by the way, I missed that story. So I forgot one story that I forgot, and that'll be my parting story. It's about Rumble. I was about to complain about Rumble, then I realized I had meant to talk well about Rumble. So this is great news. Remember, I said we're going to have things talking about bimetallism and why this year is so different. Millet, Bukele, Trump, Vivek, RFK, all these people are going to be able to talk about bimetallism. We're going to be able to scale this conversation. The movie is coming out. Wizard of Oz movie is coming out. Don't expect them to get it right. But maybe the most important, Grok is becoming open source. So all of these things are positive for our ability to have this conversation and get mimetic and get viral with this story. But this is even better. Rumble has upgraded the tech so that now they run Rumble Cloud. Apparently, the big breakthrough here is that it can't be censored anymore at all. They can't use the AWS, the Amazon hack in order to get them to shut it down. They can't do any of this stuff. The same way they got Parler shut down before is no longer replicatable. So apparently Rumble can now survive a woke holocaust and can, help us keep spreading the word. So we're not going to get shut down, right? We're going to make it. We're going to make it. The quartering rights. I don't think people realize how huge this is. The majority of the internet is controlled by Amazon via AWS or Microsoft via Azure. Remember how easy it was to take down Parler? Never again with Rumble Cloud. I'm moving everything over this week. And indeed, I think it was one of the biggest stories of the week. Sorry, I only put it on here. So amazingly, Rumble is going to help us make sure that this is it. Let's see what we got here. Diversity is perversity. The road to hell is paved with good intentions. Bitcoin gives you peace in these hard times. It sure does. Sluggo, good afternoon. CB Van, hello, Sluggo. Big Baby G, be patient with the boiling frogs. They don't know and won't be compelled with disdain. No. CB Van, called it before, Vivek. Super informative lesson today. Thanks. No problem, lesson. Bimetallism, a national reference, local currency versus an internationally accepted reference, Bitcoin. Yeah, that's one way of seeing it, Connector. I wouldn't worry about nationalism, though, as your dividing line. I would just say one is good for consumption and one is good for saving. That's how I would break it down for bimetallism. One is good for consumption, one is good for saving. How do you do these shows? Why do you do these shows? Royco Cup asks. Well, a few reasons. I mean, in the darkest time of 2020 election period, you know, I had the comfort of watching while the election was stolen and while America was getting destroyed and divided. And, you know, look, do you know how many friends I've lost from Bitcoin and Trump? Can you imagine? And now it's even worse than you think, because I understand Canada is a testing ground for US psychological operations. And I was a heavy, you know, participant in the Harper government, understanding already we were targeted with Hitler stuff and racist stuff and blah, 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 blah. So, you know, there's a certain loneliness that came from 2020 that was hard to describe. The lockdowns and all that. At the same time, I didn't have to care because I was so heavily involved in Bitcoin. And instantly when I saw, you know, frankly, SBF come up and start buying all this media and stuff like that, I knew what he was up to. I knew from the start what he was up to. And so it kind of compelled me. I had an idea doing a show like this before, but that sort of compelled me to participate a little more directly in World War III. And so I did. So that was start of it. I guess the other thing is, you know, it's community. I like the community. I like sharing my predictions publicly, right? I was very right about most stuff in this time, but you don't know how right you are unless you say it publicly. So this is a way for me to track my own predictions and my own ability to assess what's going on in the world. So it's kind of like a diary situation. It's a mix of community. It's a mix of diary. And the other thing is, I've been involved in all of these media companies in the space. I don't think media companies are the way forward. I think individual content creators and authentic, whatever you want to call it, is what we need. So I started in 2021 at the height of the market, basically doing this. And that would have been, I think my first broadcast was October 2021, somewhere around there, maybe November 2021. So that's where I started, you know, thinking, well, maybe I can get involved in this in my own way. And luckily Elon bought X and things got easier as we went along and things like that. Bitcoin Magazine picked the show up for a little while in 2022. So that's where it started. The other reason, I guess, is also, you know, I have a lot of books that I like to write and share, and this gives me a bit of distribution for that too. So, you know, that kind of stuff. Really, I mean, look, just it can be lonely. I don't suffer from lonelyism because I've got a family and all that stuff. But when it comes to the Bitcoin piece, it was tough, right? I mean, I still have friends whose brains are way too broken. I mean, way too broken from Trump and Bitcoin and all that. They can't look at me, right? It's not possible. So, you lose a lot over time, and this was sort of a replacement for that, right? So there's I feel friendship from this. I feel like I understand there's 300 and something people in the room right now. I mean, I can still feel it like it's a smaller gang. In my mind, it's a small table and we're having coffee together. And that's why I never got too much into like showing although I am going to be bringing it together, the screen and some visuals on the back. I never wanted it to feel like school, right? Or anything like that. I wanted to make it feel like literally we're having coffee together, talking about the news, right? I think we were able to get a lot of, when I started doing these every morning, it was right at the time when SBF got caught, right? And so the market was sinking. And if you were a part of that gang, the 2022 gang, look what we went through. Like, we've been through a lot of shit, man. We've seen, when that market collapsed in November, I always thought it was positive, November 2022, the big collapse, but I could see the bottom and it scared me, right? I had never seen the bottom of Bitcoin before and I could see it. It was there, right? When the flames went right up to DCG and all these other things, and it really started to burn stuff I had built in my life down. And I never thought that was going to happen, right? Amazingly, I had a lot to do with the CoinDesk destruction of SBF because they're the ones who did the research and they're the ones but I sort of was telling them where to go look, right? I had a feeling, I knew this, I knew that, I knew this, I knew that. Now, I did not directly inform Ian Allison, the main guy who broke the story, but I directed a lot of people around it, right? Or at least was one of the people going on about it. I never put SBF on stage ever in my life, by the way, because I knew just how bad of a criminal he was from day one. So, we went through a lot. So I guess that's why I do it, right? Those are the reasons. Nobody pays me, if that's what you're wondering. Although I would take a sponsor, but we don't get paid. Just in case YouTube kills me again, Saylor becomes BTC company or just overtakes Google, Microsoft. Well, Saylor is we'll be your friends, Nolan. I got plenty of, Satoshi pays me. Yes, indeed. Satoshi absolutely pays me. Yes. Being a Bitcoiner can be lonely. I'm not complaining about loneliness. Like I said, I have a family. What I am saying is there's a certain amount of like Bitcoin friendship that you need in your life. I did this for years in coffee shops around the world. I was always proselytizing Bitcoin from 2014. Every coffee I had was like, oh, you into Bitcoin? I had total Bitcoin hangout places in Toronto and Europe and all kinds of places where I would go. I traveled a lot in the early days of Bitcoin and made a lot of friends at the coffee shops and just talking Bitcoin, right? So there you go. Yeah, it can be hard to be an early adopter. Miss those sunrises. Yeah. Those were good ones, man. Love this crew, Bitcoin Dev says. Awesome. Being the only node in the network getting it. Early stage Rogers adoption stuff. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to explain. I don't want to complain. I'm not trying to complain about anything. I'm sure others think that too. Please keep going. Yeah, we are, Gene. I'd say we'll end the show when World War III is over. That's what I'll tell you, right? Like, if World War III, if we're on a Bitcoin standard, there's not really much more point in getting together, right? If all the brainwashers are dead and we've won, then we'll stop. Then we don't need to do it, or we might not have as much of an appetite. No, it's Bitcoiners' reality until reality catches up with us. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the right way to put it. Yeah. And indeed, in order, like, because look, we are redefining reality, right? Yeah, and don't end, just change it to a cooking show. Yeah, I may do that. You're right. Yeah, I don't look. I'm not threatening you with departing if we win the war. We'll figure out something at that point. we'll figure out something. But indeed, when you are trying to share a new reality for the world, you got to be able to test your predictions, right? For your own mental health, So I get a lot of mental health benefit from this in the morning, right? So there you go. That's why we do it. Smash the like button, gang. Connector says, well, you put your heart in the show. Much appreciated. Yeah, Connector, we love it, man. We love it. All right, everyone. Peace. Am I not coming in on Rumble? Did Rumble pause or something? No, maybe not. All right, team. That's all I got. We already won prosperity. Yeah, we sure did. Yeah. Turn it into a Tabasco show. Yeah, we will. We do. My wife is such a great cook. I do a lot of cooking too, so maybe we will turn it into a bit of a cooking show, right? And I've got literally the most beautiful family in Bitcoin, so there's that, right? You guys don't even, you can't even imagine what kind of a family I'm lucky enough to go home to. Just incredible, right? Unbelievably great and beautiful wife and kids, and so we're blessed, overflowing in these ways. All right, team. Thanks for coming. I'll see y'all tomorrow.